Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Footballguys Best Ball Show, powered by Underdog Fantasy. I'm your host, Dave Kluge, and as always, I am joined here with James Brimacombe. James, how's your weekend? We got this new draft that just came out, or a new tournament, I should say, the Superflex Puppy, and you maxed that out day one, didn't you?
Yeah, it's just kind of experience I kind of learned from the last time they released the Superflex. So yeah, I just wanted to get that out of the way and then enjoy my weekend with my family. So that's kind of what the way I went about that one.
Yeah, it's always tough making time for family during summer, especially with all the best ball drafting, but that should be the number one priority for everybody out here. But let's talk a little bit before we jump into this. Last week we just dove straight into a tournament right off the jump, but I want to talk about the Superflex one a little bit. You said that you wanted to get into these as early as possible. Why is that? Why did you want to get into these so early?
I think it was the last Superflex. So it's super fun, right? You're just so used to all of these underdog tournaments and best ball tournaments, all kind of similar. So Superflex, the last time they released that, I can't remember if it was like a month or 2 months ago. And it was exciting, right? It was different. It's new challenges. Nobody really knows. The ADP's all over the place to start out. So it was just kind of like I learned from that first go around that I saw edges here and there. And I just, even if I had to auto draft 75 teams or kind of partially auto draft, I felt it was worth it just because I knew like all the QBs, you're going to have the top 20 in the first like 2 rounds, 2.5 rounds. So when it gets to that point, it's not quite as fun. I felt like it's just all kind of the same. All the drafts are the same. You're just going to grab 2 or 3 quarterbacks to start, and then you start a draft. So I kind of saw that the first time around, and I just like, you know what, I'll take 10-hour window and let's just get it done. So enjoy the family after that.
And I think that's really what happened with a lot of people kind of felt that way. I mean, we saw this was like 30% full within a couple hours of it coming out, and then it really, really slowed down, and ADPs changed dramatically. In the first draft that I did, I was able to get Lamar Jackson in the late first round, Tom Brady in the third round, Justin Fields in the sixth round. I mean, looking at how these are getting drafted now with the way ADPs have changed, it's impossible. Like you said, you're seeing 20, sometimes 25 quarterbacks going in the first couple of rounds. So what we're going to do, like we did last week, is auto draft these first 5 rounds, but we might have to make a little bit of an adjustment here. If we're going into round 3 and we don't have a quarterback yet, what I'm going to do is default to the top available quarterback, because with how fast they're going off the board here, if you don't have 2 starting quarterbacks by round 4, you're probably not getting one. I mean, I've seen Davis Mills going in the 4th round, and then if you're waiting that long, you're ending up with Kenny Pickett, Matt Corral, Baker Mayfield, Jimmy Garoppolo, a bunch of guys that you're hoping might see some time on the field, but there is no sure thing unless you're locking in those quarterbacks early.
No, for sure. And I think every draft room is a little different, right? You're going to have different drafters. So you really don't know until you're 2 rounds into these things how it's going to go.
Yeah. And I've seen a few people try to take the contrarian approach of, hey, let me go out and, draft Jonathan Taylor and Justin Jefferson with my first 2 picks. And it sounds awesome until you're looking at the available quarterbacks on the board in round 3. So if you're ready, let's go ahead and jump in. This should fill up pretty quickly here. Another thing that I've noticed, though, is, obviously people put a lot of importance on stacking. That's what we talk about all the time. And it seems like stacking is so much easier when you get your quarterbacks early. So it feels like a lot of people are just building really heavy stacks here because they get their 2 quarterbacks in the first 2 rounds, and then they reach for the stacks afterwards. And I feel like it, might take a little bit of the fun out of it.
Yeah, the stacking is always going to be one of those debates in these best ball, any draft you're doing. We kind of see the numbers, though. Stacking is the way to go. So if you reach on your stacks, I don't think it's the worst. But I also think you can kind of, like, if you go Lamar Jackson or a Josh Allen, I don't think you have to stack either. So it depends kind of what the QB you start out with in these, like kind of what direction you want to go.
And in the regular drafts, I almost prefer the late picks. I really like picking at that like 9 to 12 spot. I feel like you can get 2 really good players there, and everyone has their preference. But with these picks, with the lack of 3rd round reversal being a 12-team super flex, you really want to pick early. I mean, if you're picking late in these drafts, you can get screwed pretty quickly. So we pulled the 107 here. Not my favorite pick, but I think that we can build a pretty solid team from the 107.
Yeah, I actually think in the Superflex, the 7's kind of where you want to be. So I think there's a drop off Burrow like that. I think those top 7 QBs I want one of those, and I want to build a team from there.
We got our friend Meese in the room here sitting at 104. Now, this is the scary part when it comes to auto picking, because here we are at 7.
Mm-hmm.
7th in ADP is Jonathan Taylor. Do we want to make an executive decision to put Jalen Hurts ahead of Jonathan Taylor?
I mean, you could, or also you're in the middle, so you're still going to get a QB probably coming back to you in the second round, in the middle of the second round. So, like, if you want JT right there, or we want to start QB. So, yeah, that's your call. This is your account, your $5. So,
$5 isn't going to kill me. Let's have some fun with it. You know what? If Jonathan Taylor is there at 107, let's go ahead and take him. I have done QB to start every single one of my drafts so far in these super flex drafts. And it's really hard not to when guys like Dalvin Cook and Justin Jefferson are still staring you in the face in the third round. But you know what? Let's get weird with this one. Maybe somebody reaches for Jalen Hurts or somebody else, and we get nope.
No,
there it is. Jonathan Taylor.
Standard.
Let's do it. Here we go. Jonathan Taylor. Let's hope a quarterback drops to us, because if we start running back, it's going to get really gross really quickly. If we start with 2 positional players in the first and second rounds, then I will just draft the next available QB in round 3. But as you'd expect, we are 9 rounds in, and every pick besides us has been quarterbacks. Now, do you think some of this has to do with the lack of third round reversal?
Yeah, that's a great point. I think that there is something to do with that, especially. Yeah, that would make some sense, right? Because you kind of have such an advantage if you get the one-on-one in something like this. So you can take Josh Allen, and you're probably going to have a decent QB there on the 2-3 turn as well, or then you just grab the 2-star players. So it's huge advantage at the start of these. So I agree that it should be they kind of switch it up and not just snake draft style.
And here we're looking. This is about the 2-3 turn. And you see Stephon Diggs, Najee Harris, Justin Fields. Like I said, when I did the draft 30 minutes after this contest came out, I was able to get Justin Fields in the 6th round. I mean, that is unheard of now with the way that they're going off the board. So that could be a different way to start, rather than going QB and then another QB. There is, you get yourself a QB, and then you can lock in Travis Kelce, Derrick Henry, Stephon Diggs. Take 2 high level positional players to round that out. Here, though, it looks like we might actually get a quarterback. Hopefully, cancel this commish. There goes Justin Jefferson. So here we are. Matthew Stafford, Aaron Rodgers, or Derek Carr. Guaranteed one of those. Happy to take Matthew Stafford here.
Yeah, and then you can build a stack a lot of different ways later, too.
Yep, and Cooper Kupp is already off the board, of course, but Allen Robinson's still there. Tyler Higbee is going off. And let's talk about that a little bit, because with the super flex spot in this draft, we're only starting 2 wide receivers as opposed to 3 wide receivers. How much does that change the calculus for you? Does that, make any other positions more valuable? How much does it dock wide receivers for you?
I think wide receivers, you should just not really draft them for a long time. Like, you don't even need them. Just get 7 wide receivers that are all like middle round guys that kind of give you spike weeks. You only need 2 of them. Obviously, you're probably going to want the QB in the super flex spot, and running backs are. It's just amazing, Underdog, just how people just haven't locked on to like how important just the touchdowns are, and like the half point PPR just isn't that valuable. Then you add the super flex, only start 2 receivers, it's way less valuable. Yeah. So, but I think people are just so used to grabbing those receivers, right? So they keep going off.
And I think when you're looking at 3 receivers and a flex spot, it makes sense to go pretty heavily on wide receivers, but people haven't really adjusted. And that's the one thing I've noticed here is people still just, when you're on the Underdog app, when you're on the website, you just feel it in your gut that you need to reach and you need to get those receivers, and you don't have to here. One of my favorite approaches has actually been going pretty heavy on tight ends. I feel like the value of tight ends in this format, with only having 2 receivers, still having that flex spot, I've been going bully tight end in a lot of these drafts where I've left with 2 of the top 5 tight ends. That's an approach I've really liked to take. Is it something you've been doing much here, or are you not putting much more importance on tight ends?
I think with 20 rounds, like, I have so much more flexibility, so I don't have to like force that, or I don't have to force any kind of strategy. It's probably the main super flex is the QB that you should be most worried about. So the way I was building these when I was doing it, I was taking 4 QBs, 6 running backs, 7 receivers, and three tight ends. And I didn't mind the mid-round tight ends, so grabbing 3 of them. So we're on the clock here.
And there we go. I mean, we're auto picking here. I was really hoping Justin Fields was going to slide to us in the mid-3rd, but taking a little bit of a different approach here, but I don't hate this start. Having Jonathan Taylor and Dalvin Cook, I mean, that's a heck of a 1-2 punch there at running back. And this is something that I never would have. And this is why I like doing these auto drafts to start, because it really pushes you out of your comfort zone. I would never start a super flex league like this, but with those two running backs, I mean, this gives us a contrarian approach and is a pretty fun team so far.
Yeah, I can't really complain. I like the going heavy on running backs to start out. I think that's a little underrated in these. So yeah, JT and Cook is pretty nice, to be honest.
Yeah, and we've seen a lot of takes lately where people are really starting to warm up to Dalvin Cook. I saw Sam Wagman over at Football Guys just tweeted that he's got Dalvin Cook as his RB1 this year. Derek Brown over at Fantasy Pros just 2 days ago said that he expects Dalvin Cook to lead the league in rushing. So obviously we know what he can do as a rusher, but now with Kevin O'Connell coming into town, this should be a little bit more of a high-powered offense compared to what we saw under Zimmer over the last few years. So there are lots of reasons to get excited about Dalvin Cook's potential in this new offense.
Yeah, so they have the passing offense, right? So they're just loaded. So I mean, then Cook's gonna just have some more open holes and a lot more touchdown opportunities in the red zone as well. So I see it.
We hear it about like every running back every offseason, but he's been running more routes in practice. He's getting more snaps out of the slot. Those are the things that really get you excited too, is what the pass catching upside can do for him.
No. I mean, it's hard with Cook because I still like Alexander too, right? So, but I think Cook should probably be in that first round. I guess not in super flex, but in regular best balls, Cook's probably borderline first for sure.
And we've talked about Alexander Madison quite a bit last week. I mean, he's one of my most rostered guys. I just did a show with Alex Caruso last year talking about guys outside of the top 100 that I cannot stop myself from drafting, and he is one of them. How do you feel about handcuffing, though? We got Dalvin Cook here with our second round pick, our third round pick. Would you even think about taking Alexander Madison, or are you completely against handcuffing when you got to pay up for two guys like that?
I think if he falls to you, I think sure, but yeah, I don't think you're going to go out of your way to get him on your squad. So, but yeah, down the line, you kind of have to see what your roster looks like. So we're still auto picking here, right?
Is this where we take the executive decision to take Matt Ryan? Because if you look at it, I don't think any quarterbacks are making it back to us. Matt Ryan, Daniel Jones, Jameis Winston, Zach. Well, you know what?
Right.
Let's stick with it. Let's go Tyreek Hill here. I just read an article from Football Guys Jeff Bell, who is loving Tyreek Hill this offseason. We talk about it all offseason. We've been looking for the next Deebo Samuel. And it might be staring us right in the face with Tyreek Hill. I was actually mind blown by this. Tyreek Hill is in a name that a lot of people knew prior to, him exploding with the Kansas City Chiefs. He was a 6th round pick out of a small school. Did you know he was actually a running back in college? He didn't play receiver until he hit the NFL.
I mean, that must be a whole speed thing, right? Just how explosive he is. So, I mean, I guess, yeah, I didn't know that, but
let's see. Hopefully, I think with the next pick, we'll have to take a quarterback, regardless of who drops to us, because, like we said, I mean, they get thin really quickly. Davis Mills is the last of the guaranteed starters for Week 1, and we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 starting quarterbacks left as we are in the 5th round, and we got a little bit different here, but I think this is where we just absolutely need to take a quarterback. Whoever's available, we'll take the best one.
I also think that you can go like the Pittsburgh duo later to try to get both of them. You can there's a lot of things you can kind of piece together. Atlanta, same Mariota and Ritter. You can take both of those. I don't hate taking Baker. I think he's a pretty good value. And I think Jimmy G is worth it because I just feel like he's going to play football games this year. So
he's been the talk of Twitter today. I don't know if you saw that or not, but he basically said that he's just waiting for the Browns to reach out to him. So do you think that there's a chance that, well, here, we didn't even have to reach. Jameis Winston falls right to us at 55. We'll talk about Baker a little bit more, but how are you feeling about Jameis? I feel like that's a fantastic value there, assuming he's ready for Week 1.
He's just not a guy I've been drafting, but yeah, in 5th round of super flex, I think, and we're on auto draft, so you just kind of, that's fine. Add him
here it is. To the first 5 rounds auto drafted. We got Matthew Stafford, Jameis Winston, Jonathan Taylor, Dalvin Cook, and Tyreek Hill. And now we are going to start going after some of our guys. So who are some guys that you'd really want to target here with, Jameis Winston specifically? I know you're a Jarvis Landry guy. Are you thinking about Chris Olave? Correct me if I'm wrong. You do like Jarvis Landry, right? He's one of your guys this offseason?
Yeah, I do. I think he's great. Yeah, I'm total fade on Michael Thomas. So yeah, Landry and Olave, I like both of those guys a lot.
Was it you? I just saw a tweet this morning. Somebody saying that Michael Thomas should be in the Julio Jones, Odell Beckham tier. Was that you that tweeted that or somebody else?
Yeah, I might have put that out there. Some more Michael Thomas slander. I've done that quite a few times, to be honest. Yeah, I just don't want any part of those guys. I want other people to draft them. So I just don't.
So the other question I'd have here is, let's say with our next pick in the mid-6th round, there still is one of these starting quarterbacks available. I know you
Mhm.
and I are both big Zach Wilson fans, so if he drops to us, absolutely taking that. But Jared Goff, Carson Wentz, Davis Mills, is that a guy you think about taking now as a QB3? Because realistically, our QB1 and QB2 aren't very strong with Stafford and Winston. We got some upside there, but with the lack of rushing, you got a limited ceiling. So would you think about taking one of these quarterbacks with the next pick?
I honestly like Goff. I like Zach Wilson. I like Davis Mills all better than Jameis Winston, which is, I don't know if
Really?
that's a hot take. Like, I would take all three of those guys above Winston.
I mean, Davis Mills has been one of my favorite guys in these super flex. I'd have to check my exposure, but I feel like I've got him on over half of my team so
Mhm.
far. He's consistently sliding into the 6th or 7th round. And on a per start basis last year, he was the second best rookie behind only Trey Lance. It's kind of hard to believe, but he put on, a pretty solid season. And then with you and I both really liking Nico Collins, that's a really easy stack to get later on in the draft as well.
Yeah, especially like the Texans were they were trying to basically they wanted to tank their season. It felt like last year, and he was still competitive. So he's off the board now, but
There he is. So are we taking Carson Wentz here? I mean, it seems like he's got a little bit of job security. I mean, with what Washington gave up for him. Let's look at who else, though. If Carson Wentz does go off the board, I don't want Jalen Waddle, considering we don't have Tua and we've already got Tyreek Hill here. That is not somebody I want. So there goes Carson Wentz. Cortland Sutton, DJ Moore,
um,
Cam Akers. Do we want to
I
do the
like
Stafford Akers stack?
that's what I see. Only because I see all yellow there. So there's only a couple of running backs, and I think Akers is the way to go.
Well,
That
we've got
force it.
both options here to stack with Stafford.
Oh,
Who do you prefer, Akers or Robinson? Neither of them is a huge reach at this point.
probably Robinson then, just for the stack. But also, like, yeah, when you see the board like that, just grab the running back. Then it's going to force others to take not so good value running backs down the line because they're going to need to put them in.
I also wanted to congratulate you. I saw you finally got your red badge on Underdog. What does that mean exactly? Is it
I've had that for a long time. That was just
oh,
I just changed my avatar on there. So
yeah.
yeah, I think you only have to draft like 1,000 teams to get a red badge. So
I think it's 500 for the black and 1,000 for the red. I'm getting close to that first badge. How long have you
yeah,
been doing Underdog though? This is their third full off season, right?
yeah, right from the start. As soon as they launched it, I was one of those people in line. Like they were sending out tweets, like kind of promoting it 5 months ahead of time, and I was following their account and just waiting on every tweet for them to launch. So I've been right from the start.
Yeah, I didn't get in until last off season. I kind of dipped my toes in last off season, but I had a ton of fun with it. Had some decent rosters, had some not so decent rosters, trying out some different things. But this season, I've been going headfirst into it and having a lot of fun so much. So we got somebody here. Winston is a meme. I don't get why people like him. I mean, it's tough. I mean, we saw him absolutely blow up that 1 year in Tampa Bay and haven't really seen too much since. And while his volume was down a little bit last year in New Orleans, he was actually playing the most efficient football of his life. He had the best touchdown rate, lowest interception rate ever. And it's a weird situation with him coming off the ACL tear, but he's a guy that I think has a much higher ceiling than people are projecting with him going as, the 20 to 25th quarterback off the board. I know you said you're not in on him at all, though. Is it the lack of weapons or the uncertainty with the coaching? What is it about Winston?
I just think I've never really been a Winston guy. Like I just every year he's just so much uncertainty around that guy. And yeah, he did have the one good year, but you're one out of what, like 7-8 years. Like
Right.
I don't want to bank on a second year having a good year. Like there's just other options that I feel better about.
The big thing with him having that great year is he also had Mike Evans and Chris Godwin catching
Mhm.
passes. This year, he's got Jarvis Landry, Chris Olave, maybe Michael Thomas, maybe Alvin Kamara, but it's a little weird. So we're looking at a balanced roster right now with Stafford, Winston, JT and Cook, Tyreek and A-Rob. No tight ends so far. And with, only having the two tight ends or two wide receivers, like we said, tight ends go off the board a little bit earlier. Are you thinking about any of these guys, or is it a little bit too early to be pulling the trigger on tight end here?
I like Hawkinson and Goddard, both of those guys. I wouldn't reach on any of the other ones.
All right.
Uh, That's
Ahead of any of these guys, this pick is all you,
uh,
James. I'm going to leave this one to
this
you.
is all me. Geez, I'd go
All you.
DK Metcalf.
I love that. DK Metcalf right now getting drafted as the wide receiver 25. I feel like both Seattle Seahawks wide receivers right now are tremendous values, both DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. I mean, obviously they aren't playing with Russell Wilson, and they should have been dinged a little bit. But when you got Metcalf sliding to wide receiver 25 and Tyler Lockett getting drafted outside of the top 40, I think both of those guys are great values.
Yeah, Metcalf's just a guy like we wouldn't be surprised if he finishes as the wide receiver 5, top 5 wide receiver. Like we would be surprised because we think Seattle's awful, but that guy is just so talented. Like I just feel like, I mean, if they're an awful team and somebody can figure out how to get him the ball, like he's just going to get points and going to get volume. So I'm going to bet on him as my wide receiver 3.
And the tough thing right now, I mean, you don't know who the quarterback is going to be, and I feel like this conversation is so similar to what we heard last year with Denver and when they had their quarterback competition going on. Could be Drew Lock, could be Geno Smith. And for me, I feel like if Geno Smith is the quarterback, that benefits Lockett slightly, similar to how they said Teddy Bridgewater would benefit Jerry Jeudy. I think if Lock is the quarterback, though, that's great for DK Metcalf because you know that Lock is just going to be throwing 50-50 balls up to him all day.
Yeah, I think one thing that gets kind of over, like people just don't think about as much in best ball is they're always trying to get like that breakout top player, top on. You just want Metcalf. You draft him, I want him to be like a top 10 wide receiver, but really we need like 5 weeks of him being like a top 5 wide receiver. So that's more what you're betting on, and Metcalf's like he's going to be a guy that's going to do that over some of these other names, in my opinion. So,
and the other thing is, people are so scared of the quarterback situation, but Jimmy Garoppolo is still on the trade market. Baker Mayfield is still on the trade market. I mean, I'd say it's more likely that one of those guys ends up being quarterback for the Seahawks this week than it is Drew Lock or this season than it would be Drew Lock or Geno Smith. So there's still a lot of offseason left. I think that fading somebody of DK Metcalf's caliber all the way outside of wide receiver 2 rankings is just a little bit foolish.
Well, and there's been rumors of him slightly to get traded. I mean, what if he gets traded to Green Bay? Like he's like people are going to go nuts. Like you just don't know what's going to happen. So
and
it
here's
is a long off season.
Bop in the chat pointing this out. DK was better with Geno last year, and that was really propped up by a pretty high touchdown rate with Geno Smith. But he was scoring more points with Geno Smith last year. Additionally, Tyler Lockett saw an extra target per game. Obviously those are the 1 and 2 guys in Seattle. But Russell Wilson flattened the ball out a little bit, flattened the target share out. He was getting guys like, Swain and others involved in the passing game. Once Geno Smith stepped in, I mean, he was just hyper targeting those guys. That offense ran through those 2 wide receivers. So yeah, I just think that we're getting a little bit crazy when we push him down that far. But while you were talking, I silently pulled the trigger on TJ Hawkinson here, right around his AP, pulled him at pick 90, ADP 93.5. And this is a guy who I was fading very hard last year. Everyone was starting to push him up into that elite tier, and I think that we were getting a little bit over our skis there. But now with where he's getting drafted as the tight end 6, tight end 7, tight end 8, I think he's a good value there. And he's not a guy that I think ever has that game-breaking ability like Travis Kelce or like George Kittle, where he's going to put up 30, 35-point weeks. But overall in the season, you got to project about 120, 125 targets going his way, which is going to provide a handful of spike weeks.
No, I agree. And I think Detroit has a team that's kind of up and coming team, right? Their offense is getting built up. It looks kind of fun. It's a fun team. We'll see what Goff can do. It feels like they can win a few more games. And Hawkinson's one of those, like, people remember last year, and you're going to see all those biases on a lot of players, right? And that's when you're going to get the ADP values on those. So I think he's a great buy right now where he's going at ADP.
Now here we are looking.
You like Mariota, huh?
I'm not crazy about Mariota, but like we talked about, QBs get thin really quickly. Do we pull the trigger on Mariota here, or do we want to wait for Baker, Trubisky, Ritter? I mean, you're looking at pretty speculative things here. Most people imagine Mariota to be the week 1 starter.
No, I don't think I'd go here. I'd wait another round for.
All right. So who's jumping out to you? I mean, we are looking a
like
little.
If you're betting on Mariota, go with Drake London. Like I'd rather go that way and then see what happens.
I like that. Yeah, Drake London is a guy I haven't drafted a ton of yet. And a lot of the times it's just because I fade the most expensive rookie wide receiver because it seems like there are always other wide receivers that step up. But last year that really bit me with Jamar Chase. I didn't have nearly as much exposure on Jamar Chase I wanted to. I'm not predicting a Jamar Chase type season from Drake London. What are you expecting from London though in his rookie year?
I kind of think should be higher up in the ranks and higher up at ADP. Just I feel like Jefferson, Chase, like he would be the guy. If any of these guys are going to be that guy this year, he would be that guy to me. So I think he's a good bet. And the reason I like him, and I know we talked at the start out, super flex lets wide receivers don't matter as much. And here we go. We get Tyreek, we get Allen Robinson, we get DK. But then we go Drake, which I like. I almost like building my rosters on best ball, especially in these playoff ones, as two different rosters. So I want one roster that's just set right from the start. And I'm hoping like week 1 through the first half of the season, right? Week 10, like these guys just every week they get the points that we think they're going to get. But then you add a guy like Drake London, and he's like your end of season hammer kind of guy. So you want a few guys like that. And I think Hawkinson's a guy like that. It could be the same too. And like JT, Dalvin Cook, those guys, they're going to be in your lineup, right? So, but yeah, you definitely want to think of these kind of drafts more as just one solid team. You want like almost 2 or 3 different teams built in for different scenarios along the way. So that's kind of why I like Drake London. I like the upside that's there.
And that's a good way to look at it too. I'm sitting here thinking about drafting Mariota, and you say, hey, if you're believing in Mariota, why not take Drake London for the upside? I really like that outside of the box thinking here. So here we are with our next pick. Now, do we maybe do this? Get the really cheap Mariota London stack, or are we still waiting on?
I still would not do it because I almost would rather have Ritter further down, and just like I want that week 13 upside. Falcons are going to be awful, and it's going to be like Ritter just chucking the ball to Drake London. So that's the story I'd want to tell myself.
10 seconds left here. Who do we want? Melvin Gordon or Rashad Penny? We need a running back.
I'd go Rashad Penny.
I'm with you. All of the reports out of Seattle right now are that Rashad Penny is going to be the guy. And as we saw, Kenneth Walker was drafted well before Rashad Penny. Are you expecting that to kind of be the same thing? Like you said, with Drake London being that late season hammer, do you think Ken Walker could end up in that role towards the end of the season? He could, usurp Rashad Penny and be the lead back, or is it going to be a frustrating committee? I really don't know what to expect with Seattle. So why don't you walk me through your thought process a little bit with the Seattle backfield?
Nobody knows what with Seattle, right? So that's why I like all the Seattle players, because they're all pretty good values, and you can all anytime during the season you could say, oh, Penny's going to do this, or then the rookie's going to come in. And I think they both it could be a 50-50 split, or maybe at the worst, it's going to be 60-40 split one way or the other. And they're going to get you best ball points, and they're going to have big weeks, one or the other. So I don't hate them at all.
And here we go. We were talking about Mayfield a little bit earlier, and Meese, a very sharp drafter. Mm-hmm. He's in a best ball chat. We talk best ball very frequently. He took Baker Mayfield ahead of Mariota. Now we talked about him a little bit in the show, but it seems like Mariota is going to play this year. It seems like Baker is going to play this year. I'm not sure if you saw, he left kind of a weird quote saying that, he was waiting for the Cleveland Browns to reach out, which almost in a way feels like Baker reaching out to mend that bridge. I mean, just a few weeks ago, it seemed like there was no chance Baker was ever going to play in Cleveland anymore. And now you've got the door open for a possible return to Cleveland. You got the option that maybe he gets traded to Seattle. Maybe he ends up in Carolina. It seems like there's a lot of different routes that end up in Baker Mayfield being a week 1 starter again, still just 27 years old. I think, a lot of people are expecting him just to be done. And I don't see that.
No, I agree. And I think about Ryan Tannehill, and I think I shared this too before, that kind of Dolphins were done with him, right? And he went to Tennessee, and I mean, the Dolphins just kind of threw him away. And he goes to Tennessee, and he was reliable, get team to the playoffs, could manage a team. I kind of almost see Baker the same way. Like wherever he goes, he's going to be a decent leader. He's gonna win football games. So I definitely wouldn't count him out.
So here's a good question from Meese, and we're up in a couple picks, so we might have to. Yeah. Well, let's make this pick, and then we'll answer this. Where do you think he should get drafted once he signs with Seattle? Great question. But looking at the available guys here, do we want to go with another rookie? I mean, Garrett Wilson is another guy that has a sky-high ceiling. He might be available now. He dropped to us. Sky Moore, it seems like now is when you start seeing those rookie running backs go. Are there any tight ends here that really jump out?
I like the side of that list. Claypool's my favorite. Quarterback, maybe you go Trubisky. Like those are the ones I would go. So I was Trubisky on. Yeah. So I'm going Claypool would be my pick here.
All right. Now, Claypool, obviously he was everyone's favorite guy last season. He had 11 touchdowns total or 10 touchdowns total as a rookie. And then last year, his touchdown rate regressed a little bit and he disappointed. Claypool's not a guy I've been drafting too much. So why don't you try to sell me on him a little bit? My thought process is that he could be third in receptions behind Deontay Johnson and Najee Harris. I don't really trust in Mitch Trubisky or Kenny Pickett to lead this, offensive heavy passing attack. So I just get a little bit concerned that there's not going to be a lot of meat on the bone for Claypool.
No, I get that, and I mean his ADP is reflecting that.
Right.
Full disclosure, he's like probably my top owned receiver. Like, I'm going to keep drafting him, and he is Canadian. I'm Canadian, so I got to keep going that way. Mapletron that's kind of what we like to call him.
I love that.
But yeah, so here you got Brissett, you got Ritter as well, and Jimmy Garoppolo. Like those are the three QBs I would look at.
Well, let's go back to this question. Where do you think Baker Mayfield, he would get drafted once he signs with Seattle? I mean, if he goes to Seattle, he's got to be in the top 20 quarterbacks, right?
Yeah, I would think like right around Daniel Jones and Zach Wilson and Mac Jones, like probably ahead of those guys just slightly.
I mean, Baker's got his issues and he's got his struggles, but one thing you can't argue is that this guy's got a freaking bazooka for an arm. And when you've got guys like DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, that could really help utilize that big arm. So, the ceiling there, just thinking about what he can do if he can work on that deep connection with those two guys is pretty fun to imagine.
No,
Well,
yeah,
we're likely going to get one of these quarterbacks here, Ritter or Garoppolo. Do you have a strong stance on one over the other?
Oh, you're already betting on Stafford, so he's going to be your QB, and like you like Winston, and you're betting on him that he's going to start all season. So, I mean, I think I don't think I care either way here. Like, I would probably go Ritter. Like, I'm banking on the Falcons to be a really bad team, and
Or one
or
other thing
Madison.
is, yeah, we talked about Madison. If he slides to us, I mean, we're not getting him in a great value here, but we are getting him at ADP to link up with Dalvin Cook. And, might be a little bit negative EV here, but at the same time, you're spending a third and a 12th round pick to lock in one of the best run games in the NFL.
Yeah, and it's a complete fade on the Vikings pass offense, which you're gonna if you're in the playoffs and you make it further down the line, you're gonna have probably like 80% will be Vikings passing game, and maybe you're gonna be have all the leverage with like maybe 10% of the people with both of those backs.
And I don't have the schedule off the top of my head, but correct me if I'm wrong. I believe the Vikings play Green Bay week 17, right?
Yeah, I did print out a schedule. So the Vikings, they do play Green Bay. Yeah, and then the Giants in week 16.
And as a Bears fan, I am pretty plugged into the NFC North. The Vikings have just destroyed the Packers on the ground year after year after year. That's what they do. I mean, the Packers, they've got a great offense, but their run defense has been very suspect for the last few years. So there's an opportunity here that while everybody's loading up on Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen, that this could be a very run-heavy game that does benefit Dalvin Cook or Alexander Mattison. I talked about this a few days ago on the show with Alex Caruso, but it is hilarious if you look at Alexander Madison's numbers over the last few years. In games that Dalvin Cook plays, he averages less than 4 points per game. In games where Dalvin Cook is not playing, he averages 27 touches and 21 fantasy points per game. I mean, this guy is as close to a one-to-one copy as Dalvin Cook as you can get, and you're getting him in the 12th, 13th round. I really like that insurance policy, even if it is a little bit minus EV.
No, I love that. It makes you different. It makes you more unique. And I would even say, Landry's still there. Nice. But I was going to say, Naheem Hines was there. Somebody just grabbed him, though. It's like you could do the same. You could lock in like Indy and Minnesota, the whole backfield. So
right. And I think with Jonathan Taylor and Hines, it's a little bit different too, because that's not as much of a clear handcuff situation as it is kind of the thunder and lightning, which we didn't see Hines utilized all that much last year. They obviously know what they've got in Jonathan Taylor. I hate to talk about, the consensus 101, say anything negative about him, but do you think there's a chance that maybe Hines cuts into his workload a little bit this year, or is JT still just going to be a hammer getting 28, 30 touches a game?
Hines he feels like the guy that Matt Ryan's gonna like. He's gonna check down. Like Matt Ryan's not a quick guy, and like make a quick decision. It's gonna go to Hines, I would bet. Like if Hines is on the field, like that's gonna be probably his first option.
And I mean,
So
you are an Eagles fan, so you saw it with Carson Wentz, and he did it last year too. He would have Hines wide open in the flat and just want to throw to him. Like Carson Wentz does not check down. Meanwhile, that's what Matt Ryan does. I mean, Matt Ryan made Cordero Patterson on the check down game last year, made Cordero Patterson a weapon. So I'm really liking Nyheim Hines. I was kind of lukewarm on him, and then Chris Allen came out with a fantastic video a few weeks ago that got me all aboard the Nyheim Hines train.
wasn't it the year before when he had Rivers, right? And him and Rivers had some, like, Hines had a couple multi-touchdown games.
hmm The guy
So
won my home league. He was an Indianapolis Colts fan. Jonathan Taylor's rookie year, and he won the championship. This is a 2 quarterback redraft league. He won the championship starting Jonathan Taylor and Nyheim Hines, and just rode those two as his RB1 and RB2 the entire season. So we're still a few
see,
picks out. We might be able to get Ritter to link up with Drake London, and let's say somehow Ritter does take over. That could be a dynamic duo having Desmond Ritter and Drake London at the end of the season.
yeah, and if you don't get it, it's fine. Like, I think you're fine just going with both QBs. So whatever QBs you draft in this, you're banking on them.
Right. And now here we are. We talked about this last week with Cameron Brate. We did the day of Rob Gronkowski's retirement. Look at where he's getting drafted now, ahead of
Yeah.
Tyler Higbee, Noah Fant, Hayden Hurst, Evan Ingram. People are losing their minds with Cameron Brate, aren't they?
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I mean,
see, we kept waiting. We got Ritter. So you would have liked having Mariota way back, right? But we get Ritter at pick 162, which you didn't have to pay anything for. So
right, got him full round behind ADP. I like that.
yeah, like Mariota would never have actually probably counted for us. Like Stafford would just, I mean, and then the Falcons start 1-6 or something, and then Ritter's going to get in, right? So they're going to give the rookie a chance. So that's kind of the way I'm looking at these kind of things.
So James, weird start to this draft with the 2 running backs in the first 3 rounds, but I gotta say, man, I'm liking the way this is shaking out so far. Matthew Stafford, Jameis Winston, Desmond Ritter, Jonathan Taylor, Dalvin Cook, Rashad Penny, Alexander Madison, Tyreek Hill, Allen Robinson, DK Metcalf, Drake London, Chase Claypool, Jarvis Landry, TJ Hawkinson. I mean, I'd say that we're pretty good at every single position outside of tight end right now, and we've got that anchor with Hawkinson, who's got upside. That's probably where we want to look with our next pick coming up here. This is, tight ends get pretty thin pretty quickly. Once you get past about Evan Ingram, this is about the cutoff line for me. I want at least 2 guys in this tier, and we could wait a little bit longer if we want to go with Hurst or Ingram.
So you got Higbee to stack with Stafford, and at least gives us some correlation.
That's exactly where my mind was at. I mean, tight ends are sliding right now. We're at pick 167, and Albert Okwuegbunam, round and a half behind his ADP, and he's still on the board there. David Njoku, somebody who I feel like typically gets drafted ahead of ADP. Maybe it's the recent Deshaun Watson news, but it's kind of surprising to see him still on the board here.
All those
wide
Browns
receivers
have been falling for like 3-4 weeks. Like every time I do that best ball report, like it's all Browns every week.
Mm-hmm. And there goes Higbee. So we lost out on that stack there. How are you feeling about Alberto? I mean, he's a guy that was getting pumped up. Like people were saying he was a top 8 dynasty receiver after the trade. People got a little bit crazy with Alberto. Is he somebody that you're looking at as, a solid tight end 2 option, or do you like some of these other guys better that we can wait on?
No, I think the cool thing about him is like he might only catch 3 passes, but there's a good chance one of those will be a touchdown. So I do like him a lot.
Yeah.
And
well, he just went. And there goes Fant as well.
Yeah, so there's a run. Here.
James Robinson. This is a guy that I've been drafting quite a bit lately, especially in these tournaments, and I'm looking at sit and goes the season long. I'm not quite as crazy about James Robinson, but there are reports that he could be back early in the season. And, it might take him a little while to get up to speed, but, with Travis Etienne playing the passing down role, James Robinson is a guy who has, just put up RB1 numbers since he came into the league. Obviously, he'll cede some of that passing work to Travis Etienne, but as far as late season goes, I mean, he's a guy that could, end up seeing 15, 20 touches a game, including goal line work. Any interest in him, or do we think we want to go?
He's not a guy I've been drafting. I'd go with Evan Ingram here. That's the way I'd go.
You and I are just in lockstep a lot of the times here. Most people would want to take Brate here. Evan Ingram is my guy. Just tweeted about him yesterday, actually. I mean, this guy had a fantastic rookie season, and then the Giants did Giants things and just didn't look too great. Daniel Jones with a lot of turnovers, the Giants struggling to win games, and all of a sudden, Evan Ingram has a fresh start with a tight end or with a coach who loves his tight ends. And you can say it's maybe a little bit more causation than correlation. He's had the benefit, Doug Peterson, I'm talking about, has had the benefit of Dallas Goedert, Zach Ertz, Travis Kelce. He's had some really good tight ends throughout his career, but I think them going out and giving Evan Ingram $9 million was very intentional. I expect him to be a big part of that offense.
Yeah, he's always been kind of a guy that's more of a receiver than a tight end to begin with, too. So he could lock in. It could be Lawrence's favorite target. Like, we just don't know. So 15th round, like, you're not giving up anything to find out, and he's probably going to give you a couple of weeks where he scores some points for you at the tight end position. So
now looking at the overall team, I think we're pretty set on wide receivers, only having to start two. We want some wide receivers heavy early. I'd be okay almost just rolling out with these six. I mean, maybe we can throw in another late round dart at somebody if we want to, but I think we need to shore up these running backs a little bit here. So
there's just nothing left at running back. That's the problem. So, like, the best name I see on there that would help our team would be like a Zamir White. So it's back to the Drake London. Yeah, that it'd be back to like the Drake London thinking, where it's like these running backs, like, they're going to score for us every week. Like, even if Cook gets hurt, Madison's going to score. So we're covered. You want to be betting on the playoff weeks. Like, if this team gets into the playoffs, you want one of these running backs, like basically waiver wire running backs. Yeah, you can go Drew Lock here.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah, we've already got Rashad Penny. We've got DK Metcalf. There's a good chance that Drew Lock isn't the week one starter, but if he is, we're set on quarterbacks now. We got the late round upside with Desmond Ridder. We got the opportunity that maybe Drew Lock, can find his footing in Seattle and be the quarterback everybody's hoped he is. So what are just looking at the roster, where are some positions that we should be looking at, or are you still going BPA at this point in the draft?
I just feel like running back and wide receiver, we're actually really good. Like, we could just stay with 6 wide receivers in his 20 rounds, which is kind of fun. Like, I don't love our quarterbacks, but that's kind of the way when you auto draft first 5 picks, that's the way it's going to go. So you can't do anything about that.
So, I mean, do we draft Geno Smith too, and just regardless of how that shakes out in Seattle, we got them both?
See, I wouldn't do that. I would do like a Tyler Huntley. Like, that's a name I would want, like, near the end.
Talk about upside, yeah. And you could probably wait. I've been getting Tyler Huntley in the 19th, 20th round, so I don't think we need to pull the trigger on him right now. The only problem with these live shows is half of the people that are in this draft are also in the chat, so they hear us say Tyler Huntley, and they probably throw him right into their queue.
That's fine. Like, we don't need him. But Sam Darnold, probably, and Huntley would be the 2 that I see on the list. Yeah, I don't. I mean, it's pretty dried up, but you could go 5 or 6 QBs on this team because it doesn't, like, it's not going to hurt you because I think you're locked in.
Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts. Yeah. We don't have one of those elite guys, so yeah, we might as well take the quantity over quality approach and just hope for at least 1 or 2 boom weeks between the.
And you have all these you have all those quarterbacks stacked right now too, which is kind of the crazy part.
And like I said, when you're drafting, and this was a little bit different with the later round guys that we were able to get, but it typically is easier to draft. I feel like when everyone gets their quarterbacks early, everybody is so focused on stacking that you'll regularly see guys reach for players to get the stack. So I feel like if we look through all of these teams available, I'm sure there are plenty of pretty heavy stacks going on there.
Yeah, I mean, you see most of them, they have 2, 3, some of them 4 QBs. So it's definitely, they're going off the board and people are taking shots on them. But it's no different than a regular draft. You take in, Paris Campbell in your last pick, hoping that he has a few good weeks. So it's just basically you're just adding waiver wire guys for week 14, only way back in June you're doing it.
So we're up at a few picks here. I'm fine taking Huntley now just so we don't miss out on him. I mean, Lamar Jackson's missed games in each of the last 2 years, and when he does, Tyler Huntley steps in and puts up some pretty darn good numbers. So I'm okay taking him if he drops to us. Do we want to add a third tight end? I feel like if this is a pretty beneficial format with only having to start 2 wide receivers to load up on tight ends a little bit. But man, none of these guys are inspiring here.
Well, I mean, Brevin Jordan's kind of our guy. Mo Alley Cox, like, those are 2. I think Trey McBride's another kind of like playoff push kind of guy that you don't, and I actually don't mind Adam Troutman, and you have Winston too. So I know everyone's out on Troutman, but I don't think he's the worst.
Now, what do we think about Jonnu? I mean, are you just completely off on Jonnu? This guy got $50 million last year. This team has no, like, number 1 pass catcher. Yeah, sure, Jacoby Myers, but it seems like the job is there for the taking for Jonnu Smith to bite off a huge role. And, after one down season, he went from everybody's favorite sleeper to just an absolute fade.
Yeah, I'm not picking him, but it's mainly because I love Hunter Henry. Like, he's one of my favorite tight ends this year. And I think, you can go one more receiver here too.
Yeah. Well, let's go. If Tyler Huntley drops, that's definitely who I want. So hoping that he can make it up to us or drop down to us. And then 5 QB seems pretty heavy, but given how uninspiring these first 4 are, I like throwing Tyler Huntley in as a late round upside guy. So now we are down to 3 more picks, 18th, 19th, and 20th round. Jerick McKinnon, Raheem Mostert, Zamir White, Brian Robinson, Chris Evans, Hassan Haskins. Hassan Haskins is a guy that I've really liked this season. And I know there are concerns about Julius Chestnut, but I just wrote in a recent article for Football Guys that Derrick Henry is one of the guys that I am trying to avoid this year. Are you, expecting a full season from Derrick Henry? Do you think they might try to ease up his workload a little bit? My fear is that we've seen Derrick Henry's efficiency dip now for 3 consecutive seasons. I just don't think at 28 years old he's the same back that he used to be. Value last year was really propped up by an unsubstantial touchdown rate, more targets than he's ever seen before, and more carries per game than he's ever seen before. I just worry that he's not going to be able to do that over a full season now.
Yeah, he has been a fade on my part. It's just I just would rather take the guys ahead of him. So I'm going to take more sure shots, I guess. But it's hard to argue Henry.
Right. If he's healthy.
I was on Haskins for a while, but I've actually went down to who's the other guy? Hilliard. Like, I think Hilliard kind of got some money, and I think he's kind of a sneaky last round guy.
So Hilliard gets the passing down work, which is nice. And we don't know how this is going to work with Hassan Haskins, but last year, they gave Hilliard the start and he didn't look too great. And then they went out and they signed Deonta Foreman off the street and just fed him. So I like what Hilliard can do in the passing game. And he had a couple big plays that propped up his handful of startable weeks. But, he seems like a guy that if Henry goes down, he's only going to be seeing 5 to 7 touches a week, where I want a guy like Hassan Haskins who could take that Deonta Foreman role, see 15 to 25 carries every single week, see the goal line work, and have some big games. So obviously there's no replacement for Derrick Henry, but I feel like Haskins, has the side. He's and has the build.
Go with Haskins here because I think that fits into our build as well.
All right.
And that's why I liked Zamir White as well. I really feel like he could be a league winner by the end of the year. Like, I would not be surprised if he's on some playoff teams.
We got the chat agreeing with you here. I see James on the same side as me for the backup slot. Go Hilliard. I actually just got into a discussion with Adam Koffler about this a few days ago over at Rotoballer, and we were kind of going back and forth. It's tough to know exactly how this is going to shake out with so many new guys there and so many people leaving. But I just it's tough for me to pencil Derrick Henry in for 17 games at this point in his career. So I feel like there is a lot of value in that, and I'm kind of throwing darts at all of them. Haskins seems to be the guy that I prefer a little bit, but there's also Julius Chestnut, who we haven't even mentioned yet, who a lot of people say has really been turning heads in camp.
Yeah, I don't even know that name, so.
Yeah, we're going deep. Undrafted free agent, but he's a little bit shorter than Henry and Haskins, but he's a thick guy that's really tough to bring down. So hopefully one of these 3 tight ends drops to us. Uzomah, is he even on your draft board?
Yeah, I think he's fine.
Did you see the reports the other day about how Cade Otton could actually be in for a bigger role than Cameron Brate?
Yeah, I'm not going to touch a rookie tight end. That wasn't no one even talked
about. So I think, I think we're pretty set on wide receiver, pretty set on running back. We got 2 picks left here, so I think we go one of these tight ends, whoever drops to us, and then just dealer's choice on whatever running backs and wide receivers are still available. Trying to think historically. Matt Ryan, has he favored his tight ends? Is that something we've seen from Matt Ryan? I remember the few years with Tony Gonzalez, but that feels like a lifetime ago.
Yeah, I just feel like those old QBs, that's usually the case too, right? So I don't know. Yeah. I think it's the touchdowns you're chasing with him. So you're looking for like 4 to 6 touchdown weeks from him to kind of help you score some points.
Yeah, and when you look at who we've got here, TJ Hawkinson, Evan Ingram, and one of these 2, I think he can get a combined, 10 to 15 touchdowns out of those three guys over the course of the season. We'll have a handful of dud weeks, but overall, I think that we should, at least get one touchdown a week from these three. So there goes Julio Jones. We'll take Mo Alley Cox here. Then we're down to our final pick. Is there anything worth stacking here? Anything jumping out to you? I mean, we are all over the place with quarterbacks. It feels like we could draft, 1 out of 5 players pretty much is going to work into some sort of stack with us at this point.
It was like Duvernay there. We just get 5 straight stacks, right? Dude, I'm sure he's gone already, maybe.
Yeah, and that's the tough thing is, in the final rounds, I'm always looking at Devin Duvernay and Nico Collins, but with the 20 rounds, you got to pay up for them a little bit earlier. And I do like the 19th.
You can do Brian Edwards. You can do like a double Falcon stack with Brian Edwards. You could. What else you got? I don't hate. I think Terrace Marshall. He's been starting a guy that started drafting. Just kind of, I don't know. No one else has really taken him. He's a little bit leveraged.
This wouldn't really work into our current build since we're going with Haskins there already, but Westbrook-Ikhine is a guy that I've been drafting a ton of. It just seems like that Tennessee wide receiver room is wide open. I'm not putting a lot of faith into 30-year-old Robert Woods coming off an ACL tear to be the wide receiver one there. Westbrook-Ikhine actually put up some decent numbers last season when A.J. Brown was hurt. So he's a guy that I've been looking at in the later rounds as well. Velus Jones, I haven't been drafting him a ton, and maybe this is my Bears fandom speaking, but why are we letting a second-round rookie on a team with no wide receiver one slide this far in drafts? I mean, it feels like he's a guy, both him and Tyquan Thornton, second round draft picks on teams without a clear cut wide receiver one. It seems like they're just getting faded way too far.
Yeah, I think all those guys you wanted to sprinkle them in. Like Cedric Wilson, that would probably be my guy. Like how we handcuffed the Vikings with Cook and Madison. Like I don't mind Tyreek. Tyreek goes down. Cedric Wilson's getting volume. But I don't know if he's a guy you've been drafting.
We got both here, Cedric Wilson or Brian Williams. You have one a preference over one or the other?
I'd probably do Cedric Wilson. Like he got paid a ton of money, and it's just a little bit of insurance you're buying on Tyreek Hill. And I don't know, maybe that's a bad take, and maybe you should only take him if you take Tua. And maybe you should have just stuck straight up with the Falcon stack.
Yeah, I don't want to go too heavy on the Falcons. I'm not expecting a ton from that offense, but overall,
you could have took your guy too. You could have took Westbrook-Ikhine. Like I would have been fine with that. I've been taking him too. So like,
I just feel like that caps us a little bit. If we're going with Hassan Haskins already, betting on the Tennessee pass game and run game both to be effective without Derrick Henry, that's a pretty tall ask there. So that's the only reason I wasn't crazy about Ikhine here, but. Overall, man, there's a lot to digest with this build. Let's start looking at Matthew Stafford. We were hoping for some heavy Los Angeles Rams stacks there. All we ended up with was Allen Robinson. Obviously it's tough to get Cooper Kupp if you're going running back, and quarterback in the first 3 rounds, but I do like that build. That's a fun stack, and you and I both talked about this. I think Allen Robinson is just a screaming value. We've seen it seems like the Los Angeles Rams just do nothing but produce veteran wide receivers that are fantasy relevant. Outside of that, Jameis Winston, and we're the only stack that we have with Jameis Winston is Jarvis Landry, but all the way at 151. That just, that could be a pretty solid stack to get for considering how late we got these guys. Jarvis Landry at 151, Jameis Winston at 55. I don't hate that one at all.
Yeah, it's a decent stack, and it's a good value one for sure. Yeah, I probably should draft some more Winston. The more I think about it, it's like I should probably just add them in, force them in to my builds, but I just haven't been.
And then where we got pretty gross was with the Atlanta and the Seattle stacks. But hey, sometimes those gross offenses have some value in them. So Desmond Ridder, we stacked up with Drake London. Oh, we got that. That's right. We were gonna get who was it that we got sniped on? We were gonna take another Falcons receiver there.
Edwards.
That's right. Yeah, we got sniped. So what we got there is Drake London and Desmond Ridder, 2 rookies that you think about it, they could be getting some reps together in the offseason. Could be a little special at the end of the year here. But yeah, that'll do it for this one. Overall, how are you feeling about that team, James?
I think it's kind of a fun build. Kind of shows you how. Again, I really like the just start out, auto draft them, and then try to work your way through a team like that. So it's a good exercise. I feel like it kind of opens your eyes, and just seeing, we got Stafford, and then we didn't get anybody else but Robinson. That's just kind of how drafts go. Sometimes, maybe Higbee would have fell to us, and we add him, and Van Jefferson falls. So you just have to always be on your toes and, don't get frustrated. This guy didn't come to me because he's in my stack. So you can always adjust and make up for it. And I think those last 3 quarterbacks, yeah, maybe they're garbage, but you're hoping it's one of those that breaks out. So if you get one of those out of those 3, it was worth the draft picks on all of them. That's kind of how I'd feel on that one.
Well, like we did last week, we will go ahead and share this on Twitter and let people just shred us. I'd assume that 90% of the people looking at that don't realize we auto drafted the first 5 rounds, but hey, that's what makes it fun. As always, though, you can reach out to James and I on Twitter. We are both looking to help, share our knowledge and help people get acclimated to best ball. So both of us have our DMs open. If you're ever looking for any help, feel free to reach out to either of us. James, let everyone know where they can find you on social media. I believe you got a new article that just came out that you'd like to plug as well.
Yeah, just my name, James Brimacombe, on Twitter anytime. Yeah, I'm happy to tweet back at you. Happy to DM back any questions on best ball. Football guys, every Monday morning you'll see the best ball report, kind of looking at risers and fallers. Just kind of giving some insights there, and kind of any best ball tournament I kind of also list in there, kind of put in the rake and how full it is and whatnot. And you can kind of judge for yourself what tournaments you think are the best for you and your drafting style. So I think that's really valuable as well.
If there's anything to take away from the show, it is that if Underdog does another super flex puppy tournament, get in right off the bat. If you're trying to draft a week after that contest started, you're going to be looking at a pretty level playing field. You're going to be looking at quarterbacks going really heavily off the board. You want to get in early where you can really, really take advantage of those values. But you can find us, James and I, every single Tuesday at 3 p.m. Eastern. Dave Kluge and James Brimacombe on the Footballguys Best Ball Show, powered by Underdog. If you haven't already, feel free to sign up at underdogfantasy.com with promo code FootballGuys. You will get a 100% deposit match on your initial deposit up to $100. Like I said, James and I, we both keep our DMs open, so feel free to reach out to us with any basketball questions. We'd be more than happy to set you up in a new league or anything like that. I'm Dave Kluge, joined with James Brimacombe, and we will see you next week.